Hello, this is Real World Audio and we are looking into power supply capacitance. So here TJ, the stereo bargainophile, he has a really kick-ass audio channel and he asked a really interesting question and we are going to have a look at it. So he has a KT88 push-pull amplifier and he noticed that when the company started out, they used 500 microfarad input capacitance and then a choke and then followed by a 235 microfarad after the capacitor, and then they upgraded it to 500 microfarad after the choke, and then they went back. Now they decreased it back again in the newest model to 235, and he is wondering why. And let me just do here a quick drawing for everyone. So this is how it looked like in the beginning. So let's just draw a quick schematics for it. So let's see, can you see it? So here that's the first capacitor, so that's a 500 microfarad, and the second one was originally 235, and then they upped it to 500, and then they went back to 235. So why did they do that? So what was the reason to increase this capacitance from 235 to double than that, and why did they go back to 235 afterwards? So what's happening here? So when we have a push-pull amplifier, basically we need a filtered power supply, but it doesn't need to be a very low noise supply. We can have about a volt of hum volt residue on the DC, because the push-pull design is going to cancel it out and we are not going to hear it. So what is happening here? Why the initial big capacitance? The bigger the initial capacitance, the quieter the power supply will be. So that's why they use that really high capacitance in the first place. And then there is a choke that and also a second capacitor. So this is the pi filter. This is a single pi filter following a capacitor input supply. And then after that, first they just put a 235 microfarad capacitor. Why? Because that 200 microfarad range, that's a kind of optimal capacitance for vacuum tube supplies. So eventually here, if your capacitor that feeds your power tubes, if it's a small one, let's say around 40 microfarads, then it will be a very fast one, so it's going to charge up very fast through this choke, but it's going to give you a very little reservoir for the low frequencies. So it can charge and discharge very fast, so the sound of your amplifier will be very fast, very impactful, very quick, but it will not have really much weight behind it. So if you are listening for a drum hit, like bomb, like a kettle drum, then the boom will not be there, the snap will be there, but the body behind it is not happening. So if you start increasing this value from this 40 microfarad, which is about usually the lowest that you find here in vacuum tubes as a reservoir capacitance for power tubes, if you go higher and higher, then the low end response will be fuller and fuller, and the dynamics will increase and increase up to this point in the 200 microfarad range. If you go higher than this, yes, the dynamics will seem to increase, the base response will seem to increase, but it's already going to be at the cost of refinement and resolution. So what you are going to experience is the following scenario, that the music sounds just as good as it sounded with this 235 microfarad capacitor, and let's say you are listening to an orchestra, and there's that, and it sounds great, and there's that kettle drum, boom, the tremendous hit, and after that, for half a second, you hear the rest of the orchestra is muted. So when there is a big discharge from that capacitor, then it just drowns out everything that's going to come after that big discharge. So then you will see this discontinuity happening. And if you go bigger and bigger with this capacitance, let's say you go to 1000 microfarad, 2000 microfarad, it's going to be more and more obvious, to the point where it can be so bad that there's a kettle drum punch, like a boom, and then for like 20-30 seconds everything is muted and there's no dynamics, no bass response, nothing. But then again, when a minute later there's a second kettle drum hit, then it will knock you out of your chair. But after that, for a minute, forget about anything in the music. And if there's a second bum bum after that, the second bum will be just a tiny little beep in contrast. So that's why I think they went back to the original 235, because they have realized that what seemed to be an initial gain in the sound is actually not translating on the long run. And what TJ is telling us, that he likes clarity caps as filters on all the tubes. So what he's saying, that let's say here is our KT88, let's just say like a simple representation, that here's the output transformer, the two sides of the primary, and it's connected to the B plus here, and there's his second part of the push-pull unit, and let's say they have some sort of grounding scheme there. But what is going on is that here there is bypass. So the bypass capacitor, what you can put here, it's a clarity cap, like an ASA series clarity cap. It's a smaller value capacitor. You can put here a few microfarads, a high quality capacitor, and what it does is that it speeds up the sound. So what he is doing is that this capacitor takes, the 500 takes so long to charge and discharge, but here we have a smaller capacitor, and that, because it can charge up so fast, you are not going to lose your transient response as much as you would lose with an unbypassed 500 microfarad. So I would say overall what you could do is either, so I say you went the best way, that you have added those bypass capacitors. You can, or you can call them notch capacitors, either like here for as a bypass for the full B plus, or if it's a cathode bias, so here there's a resistor on the lag, then you can add cathode bypass capacitors here as well. And of course add the bypass for the phase splitter and the input stage. And especially for the phase splitter and input stage, it's going to speed up the response tremendously, because the most important thing in a vacuum tube amplifier is to keep the input tube and the phase splitter and the driver happy, because they are the ones that are feeding the power tube. So our KT88 pair or quartet here, they totally depend on those tubes feeding it. So our paramount job is to keep those little guys, which are upstream in the signal, performing their duties. And if those are not compressed, so your notch or bypass capacitors are keeping them happy, then even though the supply for the power tube is depleted, but they are getting the correct signal, and you are losing maybe just 30-40% of the signal. However, if the driver stage is depleted, you can easily lose 90% of the signal or even more. So I hope, TJ, that clarifies it a little bit what they were most likely doing with their modifications. Of course, the story might be a little more complex if they did additional modifications in the models. But that's what my hunch is about the situation. So thank you, TJ, for posting, and keep up the good work. And those people watching my channel, please have a look and check out TJ's channel. He is doing really awesome reviews. We see him here. Hi, TJ. And I like his style, and he's really a good guy to watch. So thank you, TJ. Please like my videos, subscribe, and please like TJ's videos and subscribe to his channel. Bye bye.